Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. It seems like this seaside cove kind of foil, nighttime, etc. scene has struck a chord with some people, and I don't know, we're getting some orders for these stamps here, and when I say that, I like to give people a lot of different options for that composition or just general arrangement of the stamps that are used in those scenes in different surface media combinations, okay? Okay, now this is called photo stamping, and this is just a glossy photo print. I have a bunch of these different photographs in a folder called Clouds, or an album called Clouds on my Flickr account. People can download and print these out, you know, just at home, or you can have them printed out at, you know, wherever, whatever place you you would get photo prints. I get these at, I ordered these at Costco for 11 cents. These days they don't have that photo center in store anymore, so I just had them deliver it to me. 11 cents, you know. I ordered several, and I don't know how much shipping was. For some reason, I don't recall there being a shipping charge, but there might have been. I'm not quite sure. But this is a 4x6. The cards that I've been doing are quarter page, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So with similar dimensions, not quite though. All right, now I am just stamping this out in a dye-based ink, and dye-based inks transfer to photo paper just fine. Okay, now I don't know if this is still going to be a little bit moist, but it usually dries pretty fast. I'm getting a little bit of residual ink on my finger here. Depends what ink you're using, okay? Now, a lot of inks are a lot thicker than the Marvy ones, okay? Marvy inks are typically real thin inks, and being thin, they can penetrate the surface of whatever they're staining, which is how dye-based inks work. They work by staining the surface. That being said, there's a lot of inks that are thicker, so it might take a little bit longer for it to dry. So when I start coloring this, you know, it might start blurring some of the imagery, maybe not, but yours might be thicker, so you might go on there and it's like, oh my god, this is really blurring. So what you do is you just heat set it a little bit, or just allow it to dry, you know, a little while. Maybe I'll try heat setting mine briefly. Actually, I should hit it with a little bit more of the imagery since I'm going to be adding that in anyway. This is the Seaside Cove, so I could stamp this much lower, not have anything to fill in down here, or you can just leave it as is, and it could be just sand or something like that. I like a little bit more texture, so this is the Tiny Rocks stamp. You can go for multiple impressions to get varying values of it, okay? Sometimes when I stamp, I don't press it large enough, hard enough, so sometimes it works kind of like a vacuum and the center of those rocks don't print out, but I don't know, just use a good amount of pressure. Don't squash it though. This is the Tiny Rock Small, again for variation, and go for, you know, you can overlap and add more, but the varying values are really good. I'm trying not to go up into my waves though. I want that area to be largely, you know, rock-less, okay, because we have that little spin drift down there coming off of, you know, the crest of the wave, or maybe it's just some foam. Alright, so we have that. And let's go in. I could stamp this out. I could, you know, I know my composition that I've been stamping out the past few days. Let's go ahead and do this one. Sometimes I like to do my subject matter that I stamp out kind of after I tone everything out. But let's just go ahead and do this one right now. Just stamp on my sailboat to the side here. And I'm kind of debating on whether or not to put my moon in there. If I did this round orb in there, maybe it would be more like a sun, okay? It would be a very cool temperature sun, or neutral being white. I guess you can do it in a different color if you want, though, too. But as far as pigment inks go, I don't have a lot of different color pigment inks, you know, like a big range of them, but let's go with something like this, and let's see, I need 2 masks. Oh, let's go this way. I pulled out my 11 by 17 just paper here for my blotter paper on my table here. All right, so let's see, am I on screen? All right, so let's do a real low version. I can have it higher, I can do it lower, okay, wherever you want it to go. And I'm going for roughly center, okay. If I'm a little bit off, I don't really worry about that. I don't, you know, if I want to go 3/4, you know, 2/3 or something like that, that'd be like, you know, the rule of thirds or whatever. But I'm just doing some centering on this one because I have been using a quote stamp off to the side, which is kind of nice to incorporate in with scenes. I always like word stamps, the marriage of copy and visuals, you know, graphics. Ever since my days in my graphic arts class in high school, you know, where we're adding copy to, you know, our projects. Old days. All right, so I have my little sun down here. It doesn't stand out as much as like a dark foil or a, you know, the gold paper because I have my cloud formations behind there. But you know, having it kind of incorporated in like that isn't bad either. All right, so let's clear out some space here. All right, now what I've been doing is I've been adding kind of some of those reflections on the water. I'll just grab a little cotton ball and my Brilliance white. Okay. Now on this type of paper, I don't know if like a Hero Hues pigment ink will work. I'm not sure if any pigment ink will dry on this particular photo paper that I've been using. I've tried things like VersaFine Clair black imagery on photo paper before, and it just didn't dry. So you got to experiment a little bit. But see how I'm adding some of this pigment ink down on this paper. I'm kind of tapping it right here, and it's tapping down like a thin version of it, okay? So maybe other pigment inks will dry. I'm not quite sure. I doubt if that sun, though, would dry. But again, I never say never because there's just, you know, someone else's media, ink, paper, and that combination of those two may work. I don't know. I just know that it didn't work for me with the Clair and this particular paper from, you know, Costco. Okay, so adding down like this. But Brilliance inks are designed to dry on kind of less porous surfaces, okay? I don't know if it'll dry on glass, maybe if you heat set it or something like that, but I usually don't have any problem with it. Okay, so adding down that reflection right there, look at it, it looks like another cloud when it comes to using this formatting here. I've been trying, you know, this type of look on the darker foils the past couple days. Well, the gold paper wasn't foil, but it's kind of a medium tone so that the white really stands out on it. On this one, because the scene isn't as, you know, dark, my paper, depends what photo you're using too. You know, my applications don't stand out as stark, okay, because there's less contrast. Alright, setting this down here. I plan on doing a little bit of coloring on here too, so I should probably do that actually before I add some of this in here. I just wanted to kind of get the gist of, you know, my sunrise, you know, coloring on the water look first before I knew where to add some tones. Okay, now one of the things I like to do, and I think they're perfect for this type of application, is to use alcohol-based pens, okay? I mean, if you have Tombos or Le Plumes or something like that, these ones are Le Plume Permanent, which are alcohol-based. I think alcohol pens are great to use with dye-based ink impressions because alcohol and water don't mix. Okay, they're not going to, alcohol isn't going to dissolve the water-based inks, okay, which are dyes are. All right, so now, I mean, there might be some residual dye-based um, media on the surface, okay, and then I might drag it out, but this ink isn't going to dissolve it and then smear it that way, okay? So, all right, where do you add this in? Well, I like to add this in, like in the shadow areas of these waves, okay? And this is a really light color, okay? So, what we're doing is we're just kind of reiterating some of the lighting or shadow configurations on the scene, okay? Now, it is dragging out some of my ink, okay? I can see it when I go like this. I see a little bit of black on my tip here. Alright, but that's not necessarily bad. I don't want a complete smear or something like that, you know, like a sopping wet. You know, wet with dye-based ink tip here. But I don't mind seeing a little bit on there because it means I'm kind of spreading out some of that black ink that's on the paper. And it becomes kind of a, you know, part of the blend, I guess. And I like to start light, okay? So this is roughly the same color, you know, right here as this color of the print, right? This is periwinkle, okay? But just any kind of light tones. If you have a grayscale colors, you know, you can use that too. Or instead of, you know, just any type of light tone. I wouldn't start off with black, in other words. It would be a little bit too stark, okay? This right here, you can barely see anything I'm doing. But that's a good pen, you know, pen to start off with color. It's just very, very subtle, okay? That's how you make things easy. In terms of a process, you start off with media that's just a little bit darker than the media that's already been laid down on the paper, meaning the impression. All right, now this is another color right here. Okay, it's a little bit darker, right, in value. So you go in and you just kind of build up those tones, okay? You build up those, you know, the shadow areas in here. See, like at the base of the sailboat, I'm putting some tone. At the underneath the crest of these waves, I'm adding a little bit. If it looks a little bit too harsh, don't worry about it. We'll go in and blend this in with our blender pen, or just go back to the lighter color and blend it in with the lighter color, you know, that we've already used. You can color some of these rocks in here. The rocks are a little bit darker, so I'm adding some darkness into those rocks. We have these little pebbles down here. You can kind of go in here and put some shadows down on some of these rocks to add some tonal variation if you liked. Okay, it's a little bit harsh there, okay, so here's another color. It's a little bit of a sky blue. It's a little bit of a different hue of blue. So you can go into there. You can add it where you've added the darker tones and just kind of blend it out, like I said. You can go in with your blender pen, but you can also just blend with lighter values of the color scheme that you're working in, okay? It doesn't have to be the blender pen. Blender pen is just like some binder, you know, more alcohol, just clear without any hue. All right, so I'm not, you know, these aren't vast, you know, huge changes here. They're all kind of subtle, but you can see I've added a little bit more volume to these. I mean, you can keep going and add, you know, go darker if you want to. I mentioned things like gray, okay? This is a gray. You can go in and add a little bit more shading right around on some of these rocks. Okay. When you make certain areas a little bit darker, certain objects darker, certain parts of objects darker, we make, by contrast, but things that are lighter, they will seem one step lighter, okay? You're not making them physically lighter, but just in terms of reference, it looks lighter. Okay, so let's see. Now, I've been stamping my word stamps in a reverse, like a light text, but I think I'm going to have to go dark on this one because the scene just isn't very dark at all to begin with, okay? We're starting off with a much lighter print, okay? So I'm just going to go with black on this one. This one says clouds, and it's off the same scenic sentiment sheet that I've been using. The other one's off of it's just like what single word stamps. All right, clouds. Doesn't that look real kind of graphic and I don't know, kind of attention getting? I think it is. I need to use that one more often. I'm often doing clouds, so. Okay. All right, now, see, I've added alcohol inks down here. One of the things I didn't do so far is my reeds that I've been using, okay? I think I'm going to stamp that one out in my Brilliance Black, all right? Now, the Brilliance Black, it's a pigment ink that will dry on this type of paper. Again, you know, the white one should, and the black one should too. Or you can heat set it too. That being said, I think I'm going to do a little bit more touch-up work with white pigment ink, okay? Okay, so a little bit of ink on this. If this is the first pigment ink application video that you've seen before, one of the things I always mention is you want to really remove off a lot of it. Okay, this is what you want. You almost want it where you can't even see what you are tapping down with the first few taps. No one ever does that, though, when they do that. And I get it, you know, believe me, no one does, okay? Even though I'll say it a million times. Okay, because it doesn't feel right as a technique, you know, to have nothing coming off of your applicator. Okay, now watch this right down here in these waves, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I added 40 taps right there. Okay, now you see that little bit of light coming off that crest of the wave? Okay, now this is a little bit too extreme. I took off too much, okay? But that's 40 taps, but that's, you know, if it takes you 20 taps for you to be able to see anything, that's about right, okay? Now don't just start pounding it, though, you know, if you can't see anything. So watch this again. Watch these waves, and watch these waves kind of come alive a little bit, okay? Okay, now that was, this go right here is about 30 taps, okay? Now see that light coming off the crest of the wave? That's what you want right there, okay? That was about 40 taps, okay? And I would, you know, they weren't too gingerly. Now watch this one over here. See how kind of flat that wave looks because there's no light on it? Let's make it look more like that one, okay? Now where do you put it? I'm putting it kind of towards the top of the wave. All right, I didn't count there because I lost count around 40 or so. I'm guessing that was about 80 taps right there with the same inking on here and the very dry application of it. But look how those waves are really coming alive. It's not a huge, we're not going for just white. We're going for kind of translucent white or, you know, not clear, but I don't know, just kind of a general fog. But look how much, see the difference between that and this area in here? Now watch this though. I don't put it across everything. What you want to do is you want to oscillate it a little bit. So you put a little bit in here. Again, that was, you know, kind of inked up, so that's a little bit brighter right there. But it is kind of going in, you know, the line of that sun right in there, okay? So this right here, where I'm kind of adding a little bit down the center here, like this. Let's hit this wave right here. It's getting kind of dry on here, so it's taking me a few more taps, but look at that come alive like that, okay? So see that right there? Look at my waves now. Don't those look real three-dimensional? Again, 80 taps right here. Okay, now watch this one right here, okay? I'm going to ink this up again, okay? But now, let's go in here and turn it a little bit more, okay? So I'm putting a little bit more pigment ink towards the top of it, okay? See that little tiny bit? And then I'll kind of spread it around. Maybe that's a little bit too much, so I'll blot some of it off, okay? All right, do you see the difference there between that dimension? Now, let's take a close-up look at it. All right, see how alive those look right down there? Look at that wave right there. So that's your lighting right there. All right, and this is what you do if it's on dark foil. Each little tap is becoming, it's much more apparent because you're creating a lot more contrast with it. Okay, so on this one, it's a little bit less, so you can kind of tap on without it showing so much. But that's a good thing. Okay, but a lot of times when people can't see anything after a couple taps, they just start going heavy-handed on it. But believe me, it's we're talking about applications of 100 or something like that to get what you want. But it doesn't take that long. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 20 little taps there. That took like 5 seconds or something like that, and we've changed the lighting right here completely. Okay, see all this down here? Look how fun that looks. Doesn't it look like a real breathy type of, mist coming off the surface? Now look at this sailboat right here. Let's put this sailboat on a little bit of, I don't know, kind of atmosphere and fog. So what you do is you just come right here in the light and come into the sailboat a little bit. But notice how pale this white is because there's barely anything applied there now. I think it looks like it's kind of immersed in some of this mist and fog and illuminated fog like that. See that right there? It's sitting in the scene now a little bit more so. Okay, now watch this up here, right in my clouds. If there's a kind of a light area, it's inherently in the clouds itself, but if you kind of go in here and add a little bit more kind of lighting with your pigment ink into that photograph, okay? See how it incorporates this texture, pigment ink texture up there, with this area down here. Okay, that you can't see that too much, I know, because it's it's subtle. That's not a very dark blue right there. Okay, so let's go in. Here's a cotton ball. You can add a little bit more with the cotton ball faster. Yeah, you kind of see that up there. You can add it here and there. But what I'm doing is I'm reiterating textures that are in down here with up here. So you're adding it. What are we doing? We're adding it in the foreground, but it's also in the very distant areas of our scene. So we have this visual continuity. It's like a needle and thread with textures. You can do that with patterns. Designers use it with patterns, colors, textures, etc. So you can do, there's no one way that you have to do all this. There's multiple ways that you can kind of create all kinds of different visual relationships within your pieces, okay? I love doing it with a lot of different things like texture, and I do it with color, I don't know, sometimes intensity. All right. I think that this stuff, though, really makes a piece come alive. There's an element of soft textures within the scene. Stamping is all about crisp impressions, and if you're using an outline stamp, it's all outlines, but there's something kind of from a textural standpoint that's lost in that without adding some, nice element in there. And people like soft things. They like seeing things soft, visual things too. So I don't think that, without in your cards, you can't do that. And there's just different ways you can do it. There's all kinds of different ways. You can do it on letter forms too, if I wanted to. Like say if this clouds was above the sun, okay, stamped it there. I could use some of this and blot off the bottom part of it so it looks like that word stamp is being illuminated from the bottom too, and that would be really fun. Okay, so there is your lesson on texture. Always use just a very little amount of that. Now, when I sponged it on that sun and I wanted it really quite light, I used a full application of that ink, because I didn't want it to take forever. Okay, so now that I have some different pigment inks laid down in here, as well as alcohol inks I've been coloring down here, I think the Brilliance ink black would be the good bet for this foreground imagery, okay? Pigment goes over pigment, no problem, but pigment ink will apply over alcohol ink as well, okay? But dye-based ink, if I tried the dye-based ink over everything, I don't think it would, I don't think I would get a good stamped impression. Alright, so there's your foreground there. Quite a different look. Here's my blue foil one from last night. Here's this composition right here. We have this one right here. Okay, quite different looking in spirit. Well, first of all, this is like a completely different time of day, too. Alright, let's heat set this a little bit. And I'll format my card. I've pre-formatted a card, and I'm ready to put it together. Oops. All this talk about soft textures, I forgot about something. That's okay. You can just do that whenever. Even after I format the card, I could still do this process. But here's my white paint pen. I always tell people to shake it up. Maybe I don't need to shake it up quite as much because I've been using this every day for the past 2 days on my scenes. But going in and adding some crisp textural elements, okay? Sharp, this is a little crisp little dot, okay? What's happening here? Let's get this flowing. It's flowing right here. Okay. Okay, so we've added a nice crisp element into the soft illuminated element, okay? People say, oh my gosh, I would make a big mess if I did this, okay? Watch this right here. You do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dots right there. And then what you do is you look at it from distance. When we're focusing on this, I'm looking at a little tiny 1/4 inch space, okay? And if you kind of keep doing that, you're focusing on one little tiny area at a time. And then you're focusing right here, 1 inch area, 1 inch area. As you're doing this, you have to kind of pull back after you've done it, okay? And then see what it looks like overall. So, see, when we're doing this, you can see me working on this, okay? Like so. You're seeing the overall scene because I'm pulled out, but in reality, when I'm doing this, is I'm looking at one little tiny area. So when I gave this person some advice on Facebook that mentioned that, and I understand it too because I have to think about it too. Sometimes I start working like this, okay, and then I go like this, and I think, oh my god, I added way too many. You know what I mean? So you have to just kind of remember that. Otherwise, you get kind of tunnel vision when you're working on, with adding on some of these little dots like this. So I'm trying to change my perspective as I do this, as long as I keep doing it, okay? So I'm adding these down like this, and then I'm looking at it and I'll add some more, you know. But, I mean, it's like one dot at a time, so as long as you just keep, you know, making your assessment like this, you know, it's really hard to mess up on anything. Now, if you tell me, oh, I can't, you know, I would just keep adding it on and never looking at it from distance, okay? Like holding it out at arm's distance. Well, then, yeah, you can do that. It gets kind of, you know, this process becomes kind of addictive and infectious, and, you know, you have fun doing it, but I would try, you know, to, you know, refrain from, you know, looking at the piece as a whole, you know, only at the end of adding, you know, 1,000 dots or something like that. You know, just take a look periodically, you know, and see what's happening. You get a better kind of assessment from holding it out at, you know, arm's distance or so. Okay, I'm just adding this down in these rocks. It's like a little, I think I'm running out of ink in this one. I'm only on my second pen. These come in packs of, they really come in packs of 6, you know, with the white. But then you get these 2 free. I see it. I mean, it's all in the price. You get 2 black ones. But these pens right here, they're like, you get 6 of them. And they're the same price as the 6-pack of the other ones. But I just see this as like, you get 2 free black ones. Which I don't really use, but who knows. I'd rather have them than not. You know, the price is the same. Alright, so anyways, you see that nice, crisp, reflective, shimmery water down there? Doesn't that really add to it a lot? It looks really busy like that. But again, you know, people look at the cards. They don't like that. Maybe they'll inspect it further, you know, a little bit closer. I don't know. Okay, I've added these 4 photo squares. Yeah, I should probably add a little bit more, but I just wanted to make this into a very quick scene right here. Or quick video, I guess, too. So kind of everything all together, you know, we're talking about a half an hour or so. All right, and I have a piece of kind of iridescent, show people like that, iridescent white. It's like a star dream white. And then this is a star dream blue lapis lazuli. I thought it would go pretty well with this color scheme. Okay. As I touch this area down here, the Brilliance black, that's pretty dry, you know, after that quick heat setting. You know, we're talking about a few seconds there. Okay, but again, this is, you know, a quick dry, and it's almost like a solvent pigment ink. It's fun stuff. It really opens up, you know, the possibilities in terms of the different surfaces that you're stamping on. Okay, so anyways, there's another version of that scene. I think this photo stamping is really fun. You know, just adding that little bit of a... You do have to think about it a little bit. Like, if I did it this way, then the area down here, the water would be much lighter, and the sky would be darker, okay? And I could have had that sun in here in this area, you know, in terms of that photograph, but I thought that looked pretty good like that, as is. So just give someone a little bit of a different option. I think it's a really dynamic option to stamp on photographs. And like I said, I'll put the link to this particular photograph and to my entire album, too, in the description section of this video, YouTube video. All right, so anyways, hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Stampscapes channel.